Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. First, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for agreeing to serve as a mentor for our progress students. My name is Melissa Burt. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Atmospheric Science at Colorado State University. I also serve as our associate dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the College of Engineering. And today I am leading this mentor training as part of the Progress PI leadership team. And I will also note that this session is being recorded for folks who aren't able to make it today. So this is the mentor training that we're doing for our fall 2024 cohorts. I welcome those of you who are here to say hello in the chat and even just let us know where you are joining us from today as we get started. Okay, so for this next, I'll say 45 minutes or so, the goal for today is to introduce you to the Progress program, share a little bit about our expectations of mentors and I guess your commitment for the program. And then finally, we'll end with sharing some best practices as it relates to effective mentoring and ways in which you can improve your mentoring styles. Okay, so to introduce you, to our Progress leadership team, we are positioned across 5 different institutions where Colorado State University is the lead institution and Emily Fisher is our main PI. And then the rest of the individuals that you see here on our screen are co-PIs as part of the project. So we are a mix of geoscientists, and then we also have the pleasure of working with some amazing social scientists, Paul Hernandez at Texas A&M and Mika Estrada at UCSF. So our program is really aimed to increase the diversity of the geoscience workforce by supporting undergraduate women. We all know that the geosciences unfortunately represent the lowest diversity of all STEM fields and at all higher levels of higher education. We also see that the geosciences also lack not only just gender diversity, but also racial and ethnic diversity as well. And we know from the research that a lack of gender diversity or lack of other intersectional identities can oftentimes get students to feel that they do not belong in these spaces. And the research shows us that as we work towards increasing the diversity of our teams, that will help us do our best science and our best work. And we really want to take the stand where we want all people to feel that this is a place that they can be in and that this is a place that they can thrive in and that they see the sciences as a home or a place for them to do really their best work. So our program aims to provide support via 3 different components. The first is through our workshops, through mentoring relationships, and also resources. So we held workshops over the last few weeks in a couple different regions. And the goal of those workshops are really to share that the geosciences are at the heart of solving some of the greatest global challenges that we face. In the workshops, we talk a lot about careers, we talk about role modeling, helping the students develop some professional skills. We do a bit around leadership training, and then the dreaded like networking, right? Getting them to think about how they can be better at networking and really using that as an advantage for them to really grow their sort of professional bubble that they may have. Our program provides support through mentoring. That's why all of you are here today. We do a little bit of peer mentoring to help them like meet one another and show ways that they can support one another. But then we also do more of the formal matching mentoring that you all are a part of, which really helps to get them to see, local geoscientists who they can connect with that live in their regions or that are close by in their regions, and who these people are there to support them. And then finally, through sharing of resources, either through our websites, which highlights, different scholarship opportunities. We talk about research experiences for undergraduates. We have a webinar that very much focuses on the benefits of REUs and why they should be participating in them and why they should participate in them early. We talk a lot about graduate school, and then we provide them opportunities to connect with one another through various social platforms like GroupMe. Used to be Facebook, but I don't think they really do that anymore. And then also our program really tries to share with the community what we found. And so we have a couple articles that are just posted here at the bottom of the screen from AGU EOS that speaks to, the work that we found over the last decade of this program. how mentorship can build inclusivity and belonging in the geosciences. And then our, I guess, pivotal introductory paper was really on how we're welcoming women into the geosciences. So to share with you a little data as part of our NSF study from our first phase of the Progress program, which we call Progress 1.0. This slide indicates a figure that shows geoscience majors and other STEM majors on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis, we have the probability of them staying within their geoscience major. And what we found from the students who participated in our Progress program to the comparable control group, undergraduate women in progress have higher rates of persistence in their geoscience-related majors after they have participated in our program, which we find to be a great result. We've also found, as we introduce them to the number of women STEM career role models, we find that they are persisting in their majors even more. So for every woman or every 2 women that we introduce them to, they're that many times more likely to persist within their major as a geoscientist. And so our keys to success are threefold. The first is to inspire. So by exposing them to geoscience careers and role models, we are inoculating them by training them on how to grow their mentor networks, how they can be more resilient, and how they can overcome obstacles that they may face throughout their career trajectories. And then the third is just to introduce them. After the workshop, introducing them to local geoscientist mentors, which are all of you. And so what we found through that first phase of our program is that we have higher scientific identity, greater resilient skills, increased intention to persist in their majors for the students who participate in our program, specifically those that were matched with a mentor following that initial workshop. And not only matched with their mentor, but also connecting with their mentor, because oftentimes we see that many students never respond back when a mentor may initiate an email with them. So I think these are really our true keys to success that have been working for us over the last few years. So our second phase of the Progress program is essentially where we are right now. And the goal of that is really to test the efficacy of our strategies for program sustainability and scalability. So our initial first, I would say, 6 years of the program, we've really much focused on 2 areas. The first is in the Colorado-Wyoming Front Range, and then our second area was in the North and South Carolinas. This is where we built the programs, we refined our workshop. Well, we developed the workshop, we refined our workshop, and really started studying the students from a longitudinal perspective to really learn about their success. And now our 2.0 really expanded across the country to see what would it be like in these different regions, and especially when we think about the diversity of the regions that we brought in, to see, you know, are we still seeing strong connections for participants that participated in the program. So we expanded beyond Colorado and the Carolinas to 2 areas in Texas. I guess I can say the broader Houston area by having a workshop in Texas A&M. And then we also held a workshop in the El Paso region. And then also within Georgia in the greater Atlanta region as well. So that's what we did over the last 1.5 years. And then more recently this year, we expanded to the West Coast, out to Southern California in the Irvine area, and then also in the DC Baltimore region. And then we held a workshop, I guess that just was last month on October 18th in Atlanta, and then just a few weeks ago in the DC Baltimore region. So we've been really excited about that expansion and to be able to scale our programs across the country. I think we can now say that we are a national program, and then also starting to see the sustainability of our activities. In Southern California and Irvine, they're already hosting their workshop on their own, which is really great. And we're starting to see things happen in El Paso as well. And then hopefully this will continue in some of the other regions that we brought on. So to give you a little bit of insight and background on what the students actually engage in during the workshop, I shared here on the screen just 2 photos from the last month, our workshop that we held in Atlanta I think we were at Georgia Tech, and then our workshop that we held at the University of Maryland just 2 weeks ago. So the workshop sort of looks like this. We talk a lot about the students are here to build community connections. And so they do icebreakers, they do some fun activities just to get to know one another. We then talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges faced within the earth and environmental sciences, and how we need all of them to be part of that process to help us work through solving these problems. We then introduce them to two different panels. The first panel focuses on how people got to their careers within the earth and environmental sciences. So it's always a fun experience to see 5 or 6 women just talking about the various careers that they've held. They have many different types of degrees. Some people have bachelor's degrees, some people have master's degrees or PhDs, and they really work across all the different sectors. And so having an opportunity for these students to really learn about the many different career pathways that are out there really speaks to the breadth of the work that we do within the earth and environmental sciences. We then talk with them about how they can build their mentor support network and really hone in on the fact that like you can't count on one individual to do all the things for you, right? And so to really think about how you can grow that network and really think about the many different areas in which support is needed. And then we sort of close the workshop with another panel that speaks to the importance of mentoring and how people have navigated their careers and how mentors have played pivotal roles within those spaces. And then we talk to them about communication, how to write good emails, how to ask about joining someone's lab, all those types of things. So I just wanted to give you an idea of like, what does that workshop look like for them? And then as part of that workshop, we talk about the fact that we're going to be pairing all of the students with mentors, which are all of you. And so to talk to you just a little bit about what are some of the expectations and the time commitment as part of this mentoring experience, I have 4 things that we need you to do. The first, and many of you have probably already been notified, but when we notify you that we have paired you with a student, we ask that you please reach out to your student within 1 week. So if you're in the Georgia region and you haven't reached out to your student just yet, please make sure you do so as soon as possible. And I'll note that not every prospective mentor will be paired. We usually get an outpouring of people who want to serve as mentors, but we have a limited number of students that we need to do pairings with. And so if you did not get paired yet, or you haven't heard back from our team, just let me know and I can, get back to you on that. The second is that we ask for you to arrange for at least one in-person meeting with your students during this fall semester, if at all possible. And your student will be located, if you work at a university, at that university, or somewhere in that nearby region. The third is that you offer, once you connect with them, to stay in touch with them, either via email or social media or however way you all decide is the best way that you want to communicate with them. I think the importance here is that we want you to be available if your student reaches out to you. And I should say, for that in-person meeting, it's really important that you meet in a public space, a safe space, and make sure that we do it during respectful hours. I know I don't really have to say that out loud, but just as a caveat to remind people that we want to ensure that these are good meetings, safe meetings, where people can really get to know one another. And then finally, the fourth item is just to be mindful of other resources or events that may be happening on your campus or at your institution that you could share with your student as needed. We will provide a list of resources of activities that may be happening in your region as part of the follow-up materials. But if you see like a cool seminar that you think would be of interest to them, feel free to share it with them and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to this. Do you want to join me? Or, do you have a group of friends who might be interested in joining as well? And that's it. So we have 4 things. That's essentially the expectations and the time commitment. I wanted to share a couple of frequently asked questions that I typically get. What happens if you don't get paired? If you don't get paired, we'll let you know. Sometimes we have to come back to our list to do sort of an additional set of pairing after that first round of pairing goes out. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then how long is the mentoring commitment? We ask for you to do at least 1 meeting, but you're obviously welcome to continue to meet with your mentee. We know that 1 meeting is not really a mentoring relationship and that mentoring is strengthened over time. So as it works out for you all and you can feel the vibe and the experience, like we encourage you to continue to meet with them more than just that 1 individual connection. We will go into sort of the best practices. So the first question, and feel free to use the chat here. Please share, why do you want to serve as a mentor? Why did you say yes to the progress program when an email came to you? Feel free to place that in the chat for me. Great, thank you all. Thank you, Lauren and Mia. Wanting to be a mentor because you personally benefited from mentoring and it made a big difference in your life. that you would not be where you are today without your mentors. And I would 1000% agree with that. I wouldn't be where I am today for not the individual connections and mentorship that I've had over my own journey. Also noting mentorship has been important and really wanting to help students who may not have as much guidance. And it's okay if you're not in the geoscience, totally fine. I think we talk to our students a lot about, you know, you don't have to be doing exactly what another person is doing to get guidance, to build that relationship and to really get support, because there are many different ways in which you can support folks. And Isha, to inspire the next generation of geoscientists. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so feel free to continue to place those in the chat if you'd like, and we have another opportunity to share here in a few. Okay, so you know the National Academies did a study on effective mentorship in STEM a few years ago, and they really defined mentorship as this way that you see on the screen. That mentorship is a professional working alliance in which individuals work together over time to really support both the personal and the professional growth, development, and success of the individuals. And we really do this through a relational perspective. So I really like to hone on that this is a relationship that is being developed over time and really aims to provide people with both career support, but also psychosocial support. And so in practice, mentorship plays out within the STEM context through things like career support functions, like career guidance, skill development, or even sponsorship. And when we think about it from the lens of psychosocial support, we see things like emotional support, safe space, role modeling. All of those things are really aimed at developing a mentee's talent, right? And mentoring also complements other developmental processes like advising them or coaching them or teaching them to really support them in developing the skills necessary for their success. And oftentimes mentorship is done in a very holistic framework in that way. But I think it's really important that we think about mentorship from a more systematic approach at time, because it really does shape our future. It really does shape the future of the workforce and can be a very influential space for people to figure out where they're going, where they know they don't want to go, but where they really want to head. And as we saw here in the chat, you know, people are noting that like they wouldn't be where they are today if they did not have those mentoring experiences along the way. And I will say, you know, some of us have probably had some really good examples of mentors. We've also had some really bad examples of people who we thought would be mentors for us, where it really didn't work out in that way. And then we have some really good bad examples, right? We know that we never want to mentor in a way that a person tried to mentor us, right? And so I think it's just important that we think through how do we work through these experiences and how do we really hone in on our own skills to be the best that we can be for the people in which we are engaging with. And so during our workshop, we shared this map that you see here on this screen. And we talk about this from the lens of an ecosystem of support. This was developed through our Progress program and through some work that, you know, some of us have done through the Earth Science Women's Network. But it really speaks to the many avenues in which we can support our students. If it's through this sort of yellow area, which is their career development, thinking about, you know, their intellectual community, their professional development. If it's this red area that really helps to like help them advance in their careers through sponsorship, through networking, through role modeling, or even this blue space that we oftentimes don't think about, but that can be very, very important for people. And this is our well-being mentorship space. Individuals who can be that safe space for us, who have similar identities or we have similar values to, or even just individuals who show us kindness or show us that this is the space in which we belong to. Oftentimes students think that one person can do all of these things for them. And I don't know about any of you. I mean, maybe you are magical unicorns in this space and you can do all of this for all of the people that you interact and engage with. I know I can't do all of it well. And so we really speak to this model of we need to get away from the notion that we can do all these things and be all of these things for people. But what we can do is really provide support in a few areas and open doors to individuals who can help them support in some of these other areas. And this is what the research from mentor network theory suggests, that individuals really benefit from having a very diverse network because they're able to rely on the strengths of an individual, supporting them in one capacity, and then really finding other people who could support them in these other spaces. And so we really talk with the students about moving away from relying on one person to provide support across all of these different roles, because really it's not fair to rely on one person to really be all of these things. If you can do that, great. But again, really speaking to the space of wanting individuals to grow those networks. All right. I'm gonna pause here, but let you all do a little bit of work while I take a sip of water and ask you to scan this QR code or go to menti.com and just take a few seconds and reflect on, through the different mentoring relationships that you have been in, if you've served in that capacity as a mentor, what benefits do you get out of that experience? Or if you've mostly served as a mentee, what are the benefits that you gain out of that mentoring experience? So reflect for just a few seconds or 30 seconds and complete that poll, thinking about some words that really highlight the benefits that you receive. And again, this is a word cloud. So the more that people say the same word, the words will get a little bit larger. All right, we're seeing things like confidence, community, validation, fulfillment, understanding yourself, encouragement, inspiration, personal growth, right? The things that are really popping out are like growth, community, confidence, social capital, belonging. All right, so what I'm getting from this, and what I'm hearing from all of you is that mentoring is sort of this two-way relationship. Some of you said some of these words that I have here on the screen now, but it's really a two-way experience. And it's really moved away from this hierarchical style where like you are the mentor, you know all the things, and you're just giving these things to another individual. But you're really thinking about, look, I'm learning something as well as I work with this person. I learned something about myself. I can be influential. They can have an influence over me. You can learn about new perspectives. You can help them develop skills, but maybe you're also developing skills as well. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of satisfaction. There's a lot of knowledge that comes and grows out of these experiences. And I think about, for my own self, when I've been in, these mentoring relationships, I oftentimes learn a lot from my students or from my mentee about my own self and how I navigate and how I even communicate, right? As a way to build a better connection and a stronger connection with those individuals. So I really, and I hope, and it sounds like all of you have really grown and learned a lot of things about yourself as you have connected with these individuals. And yes, I will agree. Mentimeter is a great tool that really helps to make things interactive, especially when you have individuals who may not want to speak out loud. It's a good way to share, connections through that way. So when we think about this, I really appreciate the information that I've gained and really the pieces that I've learned over time through my connections with my mentees. And we oftentimes mentor like we were mentored, unless we're very thoughtful about that experience and that approach, that we're really intentional about the ways in which we're going to interact and communicate, and ultimately that we really remain open to learning. So most of us have had zero formal mentor training. I guess you could say you're here now, so maybe you have. But like a lot of us just learn about how to mentor because we learn about it along the way. And going back to that definition, we know the things that we don't want to do as we engage with people and really use it as a tool to develop our own skills in that way. And, as scientists, we spend a lot of time dedicating ourselves to our science, if it's through, designing good studies, if it's generating good research questions, selecting the right ways in which we want to analyze data. And that's the way that we do our science. But we don't take that same sort of systematic approach as we build effective mentoring relationships, right? In order to form good mentoring patterns. So I think it's that we have to model these behaviors in a way not only for our own selves, but also for the mentees that we're engaging with, so that they can also learn how they can be better mentors themselves as they aim to sort of mentor the next generation that comes after them. All right, so I'm going to share, I think I have 10 tips as a way in which we can be better at our mentoring. And so I'll just go through those quickly here. The first is that it's really important to be inclusive in your mentoring. When we looked at that definition about mentorship, it really spoke about the relational pattern that has to happen. So making sure that your mentoring is relationship centered is something that's really key. And that as part of that, that you value new ideas and creativity, that you hold space for conversation and ways in which you can share ideas with one another, and that you use these mentoring relationships as a method to empower learning that happens, and giving the opportunity for people to bring their whole self into that experience and into the things that are doing. And ultimately, if you're working, in this mentoring relationship that you really want to share, what are your goals or what are your expectations? What are you hoping to get out of that experience? And if you don't know, that's okay. You can say that right out loud, but really getting to think about how do we want to sort of move forward in the relationship that we are building. The second is to get to know them, right? Go out for coffee, ask questions like, what got you interested in science? What are things that matter to you? What are components that motivate you, right? I think if you're listening and talking with them and getting to know them, you're able to hear, what values drive their motivation, why they decided to be a scientist, in the first place. Or even asking them questions like, what has it been for you? What has it been like for you in whatever city or town you may be living in? Especially if it's a new place for people. We talk a lot with our first year students about, here in Fort Collins, like everyone says Fort Collins is a great place to be, but it might not be a great place for everybody, right? And so learning, what works well for them, what's been something that's been troubling for them, or how can they be connected to other people to make that experience better for them. The third is to be curious and to ask questions, right? Share a little bit about your own experiences, sharing like what's been successful for you, what motivates you to continue to do the work that you do, what scares you or what worries you about where we're going in the future. And even sharing photos of things that you like to do outside of work, if it's cooking or baking or running or whatever it may be, just for each other, just for one another to get to know each other. Sorry, I said that a little bit weird. Number four is to really share your enthusiasm for your work, right? Share like excitement of the projects that you're working on, if it's through photos, if it's videos, a new article that you got published, and really ground your work in the big picture and why it's really important and why you love what you do, but also acknowledging that you may be experiencing challenges from time to time, and speak about some of those challenges that you've had, but what keeps you going and what keeps you motivated in the activities that you're doing. Number five is to avoid absence. Some of the most common complaints that we get about mentors through these activities is that, students reach out to the mentors, but then the mentors never respond. So I think it's really key that you maintain consistent communication and that you also be reliable. I will also note that the biggest complaint that we get from some of the mentors is that their undergrads are not responsive. And so we're trying to have conversations on both sides to make sure that people are just being consistent and communicating and figuring out what's the best mode of communication for each other during this. So when you reach out to them, say, hey, will you respond to email, or do you want to connect in these other platforms through LinkedIn or whatever it may be, as a way to stay connected? It's really important to highlight your similarities. Studies show that mentees find their relationships with their mentors to be more valuable when they perceive that they have similarities. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but really sharing the similarities that you may have. And those are the connecting pieces in which you're coming together. So when you signed up to be a mentor, we had you complete this survey. And some of the questions are probably like, which organization would you donate to if you had $1 million? But we're using this sort of birds of a feather approach to talk about some of the commonalities that people may have as to a method of how we paired you with the particular mentee that you may have. Number seven, in our program, we really stress the importance of developing coping strategies when we feel as though we're struggling with situations. So it's helpful for mentees to perceive that their struggles are normal. And we found that they oftentimes misinterpret their struggle as a personal inadequacy that they may have, and it's something that can't be changed. But in reality, we know that, we go through academic struggles, we go through personal struggles. These are common things, and they also are changeable. So we really encourage you all to share examples and strategies that lead to your success, or how you've led to your success, in ways in which you persevered. So if it's either, active efforts on how you've coped with something, or ways in which you have sought out support, if it's going to therapy or if it's connecting with other individuals on campus, as a way to show that we all go through struggles, and here's the methods in which we sort of cope with them. Number 8, just recognizing that there's lots of other challenges that may be out there beyond just school, if it's related to racism or harassment, if students are feeling that imposter experience, like, why am I here? What am I doing? They may also be dealing with struggles, if it's family issues or health issues, or uncertainty about what their specific futures are. So just understanding and recognizing that there may be other challenges that are out there as well. It's important to really show, number 9, that you have confidence in their ability to succeed. So communicating, your expectations, or communicating confidence in the things that they're doing, and really supporting that with specific examples if you can. And finally, we got to number 10, and which probably should actually be number 1 when I think about this, but it's really important to be an active listener, right? And this Center for Creative Leadership has sort of developed 6 key active listening skills that are really important as you get to know an individual, as you learn more about the people in which you're engaging and interacting with. And it really stems from this notion of just paying attention, be really focused on the moment, withholding judgment, so ensuring that you have an open mind, reflecting, especially when you're the listener, that you don't want to assume that you're understanding everything, but really reflecting on what's being talked about. And then finally, sort of this lens of really sharing, right? It's really all about understanding that person, and the person wanting to ensure they're being heard. I think oftentimes we talk a lot about, oh, I'm a really great listener, but really you're not a great listener. You're just trying to think about what you're going to say next, right? And so it's really key to practice this from a lens of active listening. And so we're gonna try something, we're gonna practice something. So hopefully everyone does not drop off the call at this moment, but we're gonna go into a breakout really quickly, just to get to know a few other people that are here on the call. And what I'm going to ask you all to do is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms of 2 people. It might be 3 people, and you'll essentially have about 8 minutes to get to know one another. So the rules behind this is that both people should have an active mic if you're able to do this. So essentially nobody's on mute, and you'll pick one person to go first. And that person will spend a minute or 2 talking about themselves, while the rest of you, or whoever else is in that breakout room, should really practice this notion of active listening, and really resisting the urge to interrupt them or to respond to them. And then maybe ask them a few questions, tell me more about this, or what happened with that. And then after the exercise, you can sort of do a switch and have the other individual talk. So we're going to go into breakout rooms here for about 8 minutes, where you can just get to know the person and really use this as a lens of practicing that active listening skill. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms. I'm going to broadcast this slide so that you can see it, and then we'll go for about 8 minutes or so. All right, so how was that active listening experience? Maybe one person wants to come off of mute and share.
And so it was very fast, but it was enjoyable. And it was actually, it's different from if you're not actually trying to do active listening, because you're having to stop yourself from planning like what you're gonna say or how what they're talking about intersects with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Claire.
like put a pin in it and like, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. Anyone else?
Hi everyone. I thought this was really cool. I agree with Claire in that, it was not easy to actively do that. But what I found really difficult actually was being the speaker.
Mm,
I think if I was asked to keep speaking, I'll have a hard time because I don't like speaking about myself. So
yeah. Thank you so much, Joyce. I appreciate that as well. So thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Claire. I'm sure many of you had very similar experiences. I oftentimes think it's a bit easier actually when I'm on Zoom than if I was in the same room as a person, because if I'm in the same room and I'm like vibing off of them, like I want to start talking immediately, or I'm like already rushing to ask additional questions after that. So um, they've sort of put together like, where do we oftentimes go wrong when we're trying to like practice this active listening skill? And oftentimes people have, you have a hard time concentrating on what's being said. Like me, I'm thinking about what I actually want to say next, rather than what the person is actually saying. Or oftentimes we jump really quickly to want to give advice or to give solutions to the problems that people may have if they're speaking about something like that. Or even telling people, oh, it's okay, or however you may feel. So if you happen to answer yes to any of these questions, you're sort of not alone in that experience. But I think even if we have the best intentions, oftentimes we're just unconsciously sending signals, if it's through body language or if it's through jumping in and actually saying something out loud, that we're not really listening to the people that's speaking. So I did a good job when both Claire and Joyce were speaking, because sometimes when I do this, I like jump and interrupt them immediately. So then clearly I'm not actually active listening, as I'm the one leading the the experience. So I think it just gets us to sort of think a bit and take a step back when we're talking and listening to people. So how do you actually boost those active listening skills? Just a couple thoughts. You can limit distractions, really hone in on what's being said and not what you want to say. To really lean into this notion of silence, and encouraging the other person to offer their ideas and solutions before you actually give your own. And then, another key is to just restate some of the key points that you've heard and ask whether they're actually accurate as a method of reflection, so that you know that you actually were listening to what they're saying. Okay, and then finally, as you're working and engaging, with your mentee or whoever else it may be, I think it's really key just to be able to provide feedback and also to practice kindness with them and sharing things like, I noticed that you had this particular behavior, or thank you so much for being open and vulnerable and brave to share what you just shared. Last few slides. I think everybody can be a better mentor, and I think all of us can really take the opportunities to really develop that skill even more. The screenshot here on the side is part of the study that the National Academies did around the science of effective mentorship in STEM. They have a really great resource. It is a really great resource, and they have a really good online guide and even an additional podcast that really speaks to some of this activity. And if you haven't seen, there's a great section focused around culturally aware mentoring that I think is really important and different and really key as we continue to bring in a diverse group of individuals within the STEM interface. And then finally, just to share this quote from Susie Orman, that the key to being a great mentor is to help people become more of who they already are and to not make them more like you. And so with that, I just want to say thank you, one, for participating today, two, for saying yes to serve as a mentor for our progress students. And then third, I'll just remind you all to have fun, because this is our ability to give back to the next generation. So I'm happy to take any questions that people may have about what I shared today, or if you have some specific questions about progress or the mentor pairing that you may have had, you can email Milena at ourprogressgeoscience@gmail.com.
I just have a question about I've reached out to my mentees, but I haven't heard back.
We're back.
And I've tried emailing them like, hey, like I hope everything is okay. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Um,
And sometimes that happens. They don't respond. So I think which is like frustrating, right? Because they're like, oh, excited about this, and then they don't respond. I wrote your name down too, and maybe I will see if we can either do another ping to the students to be like, hey, if you haven't connected with your mentor, you probably have an email in your inbox that you should respond to. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Good fall break if you have fall break, all the things.